I stood before the heavy oak door of a familiar, opulent villa in Hampstead. The fatigue that had settled in my bones during the long flight back to London vanished in an instant, replaced by a bewildering sense of dread. I inserted the key into the lock, turned it once, then twice, but the door remained as unmoving as a fortress wall. Convinced I couldn't have made a mistake, I tried again, but the result was the same. The door was bolted from the inside. A vague unease crept into my heart. I had returned a day early from my business trip, intending to surprise my husband, Julian. After 7 years of marriage, such romantic gestures had become increasingly rare, but I wanted to reignite the spark between us. It seemed, however, that the first surprise was for me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Julian's number. The long, grating ringtone echoed in my ear. He finally answered after the 5th ring, his voice sounding flustered and rushed. "Hello? Eleanor? Darling? Are you done with work?" "Yes. Well, I just arrived. I'm at our front door. Why is it bolted from the inside?" I tried my best to keep my voice steady. A few seconds of silence passed over the line. I could faintly hear the sound of crashing waves and loud music. Julian wasn't in a meeting room. My heart began to beat erratically. Yes. I'm in a crucial meeting with some partners. I probably won't be home until late tonight. Why don't you take a cab to your parents' place and rest for the night? I'll see you tomorrow. His voice was laced with deceit, each word a needle pricking at my trust. "Where are you having a meeting that sounds so much like the seaside?" I pressed, a chill spreading from the base of my spine. "We're in Brighton for a conference. Look, my boss is calling me. I have to go. I'll call you tonight. Love you." He hung up abruptly, giving me no time to ask anything else. Love you. How hollow and nauseating those 2 words sounded in my head. I had heard them thousands of times over the past 7 years, but never had they made me feel so sick. I listlessly dragged my suitcase towards the main gate, about to call a taxi to my parents' house. Just then, Arthur, the concierge for the villa complex, spotted me during his rounds and greeted me warmly. "Ah, Mrs. Harrington. You're back from your trip. You're looking well." "Hello, Arthur." "Yes, I just got back." I managed a strained smile. "Arthur, was anyone at my house today?" "Oh, you didn't go on the family trip with them?" he asked, his round eyes wide with surprise. "Just yesterday morning, I saw Mr. Harrington Sr. taking the whole family to the airport. He was boasting about how they were all going to the Maldives for a week to celebrate some wonderful news. There was a pretty young lady with them, too. Heard she's the younger Mr. Harrington's new girlfriend, and they're celebrating some happy news. A pregnancy, I think. Said they were all going for a celebratory holiday. I even congratulated Mr. Harrington Sr. on finally getting a grandchild. Each of Arthur's words was a hammer blow to my head. Good news, girlfriend, pregnancy. The Maldives, the entire family. My mind reeled, tangled in a web of horrific information. The carefully constructed curtain of lies my husband and his family had woven had just been unceremoniously ripped apart by an oblivious third party. I don't remember how I said goodbye to Arthur. When I came to my senses, I was standing before that oak door again, a terrifying resolve hardening in my eyes. I had to get into that house. I had to know the truth. I called a locksmith, my voice surprisingly cold and firm even to my own ears. The pain and betrayal were slowly condensing into a dark force, ready to destroy everything. The storm inside me had only just begun. After nearly 20 minutes of work, the locksmith, sweating, took my payment and left in a hurry, as if sensing the suffocating atmosphere that surrounded me. With a heavy clunk, the lock gave way. I pushed the door open cautiously and stepped into the home I had always proudly called my sanctuary. The scent of lilies, which my mother-in-law placed in a vase every week, hit my nostrils. But today, even that fragrance induced a wave of nausea. The house was empty, but signs of a hasty departure were everywhere. Sofa cushions were askew, and a half-drunk glass of water sat on the coffee table. My heart pounded furiously as I approached the wall of family photos. And there, I froze. Among our wedding photos and pictures from family holidays over the years, a new frame had been placed in the most prominent position. In the photo, the entire Harrington family was beaming at an airport. My father-in-law, Richard, my mother-in-law, Patricia, Julian's brother, and his wife, and Julian. He stood in the center, one arm around his mother's shoulder, the other wrapped around the waist of a young, unfamiliar woman. The woman wore a triumphant smile, a thin dress, revealing a distinctly rounded belly. They looked like a perfect, happy, real family. And I, the legal wife, was merely a redundant spectator. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. Stumbling, I made my way into Julian's study, where the computer we shared Saturday. With trembling fingers, I typed in the password, our wedding anniversary. As the screen lit up, the first thing I saw was a booking confirmation from a 5-star resort in the Maldives. Booker, Julian Harrington. Guests, Julian Harrington, Chloe Vance. Room, Ocean View Couples Suite. Duration, 1 week. A single hot tear finally traced a path down my cheek. I clicked on the shared family cloud app, the very space I used to boast about to my friends, sharing our happy moments. And there, true hell unfolded before my eyes. In a folder named Maldives, Baby Celebration, hundreds, thousands of photos had been uploaded. Julian feeding that woman a piece of fruit. My mother-in-law holding her hand, strolling along the beach with a look of maternal affection I had never received. My father-in-law, his hand on her belly, smiling with deep satisfaction. The whole family toasting with champagne glasses, with Julian and Chloe seated at the head of the table. They were happy, joyful, celebrating their betrayal of me. In their world, I had been completely erased. I scrolled through photo after photo, each one feeling like a fist clenching around my heart. There was a close-up of Chloe's face. She had sharp eyes and a smile that was simultaneously innocent and provocative. It was as if she were looking right at me, mocking my ignorance and naivety. There were short videos, too. Vibrant laughter. My mother-in-law's voice calling Chloe, our new daughter. Julian's voice promising to make things official for mother and child. Once everything is sorted out, everything. I was the everything that needed to be sorted out, an obstacle to be removed on their path to happiness, a problem to be solved. 7 years of love, 7 years of devotion, 7 years of sacrifice, all traded for this hideous truth. I had been betrayed not just by my life partner, but by his entire family, whom I had respected and loved like my own parents. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed in the silent room. The truth was laid bare, brutal, and without room for doubt or excuse. The tears stopped. In their place, from the deepest part of my soul, a furious flame of hatred began to burn. If they wanted a war, I would give them one. A war I had no intention of losing. After the initial shock subsided, a terrifying emptiness washed over me. I slumped to the cold floor, leaning against the wall, my eyes staring blankly into space. I replayed everything in my mind, searching for the signs I had missed. Julian's frequent urgent calls, his sudden business trips, the expensive gifts my mother-in-law boasted were from Julian's friend. It was all part of an elaborate charade in which I was the only unwitting audience member. I dragged myself to the balcony and took a deep breath of the London night air. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but to me, they were all gray. Just then, I saw my neighbor from the villa opposite walking her dog. She saw me and waved. "Oh, Eleanor, you're back. I thought you'd gone with the family." I managed a crooked smile. "No, I had some work to finish up." She came closer, her expression turning apologetic as she lowered her voice. "Eleanor, don't be upset by this, but your mother-in-law popped over before they left a few days ago. She couldn't stop bragging about Julian's new girlfriend. Said she was beautiful, sweet, and pregnant with the precious Harrington heir. She also said your marriage had been over for a long time, and you were just waiting to go to court. I felt so bad for you hearing it. Anyway, since things have turned out this way, stay strong." Her every word was a razor slicing through the last thin thread of my composure. The glass had finally overflowed. They hadn't just cheated behind my back. They had been actively disparaging and demeaning me to the world. The mother-in-law I had respected so much had been parading the end of our marriage while I worked myself to the bone for what I believed was my family. I mechanically thanked the neighbor and went back inside. The pain was gone, and the broken heart was no more. All that remained was an ice-cold reason. They had left me no way out, so I felt no need to hold on to any last shred of sentiment. My first move was to check our finances. I opened my banking app. In the joint savings account, which once held over £500,000 we had saved over 7 years, only a few £100s remained. The transaction history was filled with large withdrawals and transfers made in the last 2 months, all on days I was away on business. The recipient's name was unfamiliar, Chloe Vance. It didn't stop there. I checked the credit cards. Julian's card was nearly maxed out with charges from luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, and expensive travel. He had been funding his lavish life with his mistress, using our money, my blood, and sweat. Rage peaked within me. I had not only been cheated on, I had been systematically defrauded. They planned to strip me of everything I had and then cast me aside with nothing. My entire body trembled with contempt and hatred. No, I will not let them get away with this. I sat at the desk in the study and opened my own laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard, fast and resolute. I began searching for information on divorce lawyers and legal procedures for asset protection. Pain had transformed into action. Tears had given way to a meticulous and ruthless plan for revenge. They had taught me a costly lesson in betrayal. Now, it was my turn to teach them a lesson in consequences. Night had fully descended upon London, but I couldn't sleep a wink. The spacious villa now felt like a cold prison. I couldn't stay there a second longer. I packed a small suitcase with a few changes of clothes and, most importantly, my essential documents. Before leaving, I took one last look around the house. Our wedding photo on the wall seemed to mock me. Without a moment's hesitation, I took it down and threw it in the bin. A clean break. It had to be a complete severance. I drove without a destination, tears streaming down my face. Finally, the car stopped at the only place I could think of at that moment. my parents' house. My mother was horrified to see my wretched state in the middle of the night. She hugged me tightly, her voice filled with concern. "Eleanor, what on earth happened? Is everything all right? Where's Julian?" I couldn't speak. I just sobbed in her warm embrace. My father, drawn out of his study, saw me and his expression hardened. A lifetime as a Queen's Counsel, having dealt with all manner of human depravity, told him instantly that something terrible had occurred. "Come inside, Eleanor. Whatever it is, tell us everything." His voice was low and warm, possessing a strange power to calm my frayed nerves. In the softly lit living room, I recounted the entire story from the locked door and the family's trip to the Maldives, to the pregnant mistress, the photos, and the empty bank account. I began with sobs, but my voice grew clearer and stronger as I spoke. The initial weeping transformed into a lucid fury. When I finished, my mother was trembling with rage. "My God, how could such shameless people exist? The entire family deceived my daughter? Oh, my poor Eleanor, how much you must have suffered." She pulled me into another hug, crying with me. My father was silent. He sat in his armchair, his hands clasped, his gaze sharpening. His silence was more terrifying than 1,000 scoldings. When my story was over, he spoke slowly, each word deliberate and firm. "Daughter, listen to me carefully. First, you've cried enough. From this moment on, you must be strong. You have done nothing wrong. They are the ones at fault. You must not break." I nodded, hastily wiping away my tears. "Second," my father continued, "we will not let them get away with this. This isn't a simple case of infidelity. This is fraud, embezzlement of assets, and potentially criminal activity under the guise of marriage. I will not let you be wronged." "But Dad, what do I do now?" I asked, my voice still cracking. "The very first thing you must do is hire a brilliant lawyer. A very brilliant one." My father looked me straight in the eye. "This can no longer be solved with emotion. It must be solved with the law. Do you remember my old friend George Davies' son, Leo? He's now one of the top divorce and financial dispute lawyers in London. He's sharp, decisive, and he will not let you lose." Leo Davies. I remembered him. We were in the same year at school and had been quite close. He was smart and witty, but also brutally direct. I'd heard he'd studied abroad, become a barrister, and was now incredibly successful. It had been years since we'd spoken. "I'll call him now. He'll come straight away," Dad said. "In the meantime, you get some rest. This is going to be a long fight, and you need to conserve your strength." My father's resolve and my mother's love felt like a transfusion of strength. I was no longer alone. I had my family, a newly formed and unshakable alliance. Tonight, I would sleep in my childhood bedroom, under my parents' protection. And tomorrow, when the sun rose, I would begin my war, a war for justice, for my honor, and for everything that belonged to me. Less than an hour after my father's call, the doorbell rang. Leo had arrived even faster than I'd expected. The skinny, lanky boy with thick-rimmed glasses I remembered was now an imposing man in a tailored suit. Only the sharp, incisive eyes behind the designer frames were the same. "Good evening, sir, ma'am," and Eleanor. Leo nodded to my parents before turning to me. A flicker of sympathy crossed his eyes before it was replaced by professional focus. "I got the gist from your father. Eleanor, let's get straight to it. This isn't the time for grief. It's the time for action. I need to hear everything, in as much detail as possible. Don't leave anything out. Sitting opposite Leo, I recounted everything once more. This time, there were no tears, no sobs, just a clear, cold statement of facts. I showed him the photos, the booking confirmation, and the screenshots of the bank statements I had saved. My father sat beside me, occasionally adding a detail from a senior legal perspective. As Leo listened, he typed rapidly on his tablet. The more he heard, the graver his expression became. When I had finished, he looked up, his gaze like a blade. "This is worse than I thought," Leo said bluntly. "This isn't just a divorce suit over infidelity. This is a case of organized fraud. They planned this meticulously to steal your assets, but they made a fatal mistake. They were too arrogant, and they left too many tracks." Leo turned his tablet towards me. On the screen was a clearly drawn mind map. "This is our strategy. We attack on 3 fronts. First, proving the adultery and breach of marital duty. The photos, videos, the concierge's testimony, and the booking emails are more than enough. We can sue for damages that will cripple him." My heart hammered in my chest. I hadn't thought of crippling him, but then I remembered his arms around his mistress, his family smiling over my pain. My hesitation vanished. "Second," Leo continued, "and this is the most important part, the finances. We need to prove that Julian embezzled joint assets, misappropriated funds, and possibly even forged your signature to take out loans. You said he's a director at the family company? I need every piece of information on that company. We'll demand an independent forensic audit. I suspect he used company money to buy that mistress, a flat, or a car. But how can we get that kind of information?" I asked anxiously. Just then, the doorbell rang again. My mother opened it to reveal my cousin, Mark. He was in civilian clothes, but his posture and bearing couldn't hide his profession as a police officer. "Got your call, Uncle?" Mark said, looking at me with concern. "You all right, Ellie?" "I'm fine." I shook my head. "Mark, you're here just in time. We need your help," my father said, briefly explaining the situation. As he listened, Mark's face hardened. He patted my shoulder and turned to Leo. "What do you need? Just say the word." "We need a lot," Leo said with a calculating smile. "First, I need you to run a background check on a woman named Chloe Vance. I have a feeling she's not a simple case. Second, check for any major property or vehicle transactions in the names of Julian Harrington or this woman in the last 2 years. Third, if possible, discreetly ask around some contacts in the city about the Harrington Company's financial team." Mark nodded without hesitation. "Consider it done. This is family. I'll have initial intel for you within 24 hours. As for Julian Harrington's cheating, that's no surprise. He always had a reputation. Our Ellie was just too good to see it." My cousin's words were another dagger to my heart, but a necessary one to snap me to my senses. "And the third front of attack," Leo concluded, "is psychological warfare. We need to act fast and catch them completely off guard. While they're enjoying their holiday in the Maldives, we will set a perfect trap for them here in London. By the time they return, there will be nothing left for them." That night, the lights in my parents' living room stayed on late. It had transformed into a command center. My father, the seasoned QC, acted as a strategic advisor. Leo was the commander-in-chief, plotting each move with razor-sharp precision. My cousin Mark was the intelligence unit, and I, the suffering victim, had become the hidden weapon in this war. The fire of hatred inside me no longer burned to consume myself, but to light the path for the counterattack to come. The next morning, As I was reviewing documents with Leo and my father, my phone rang. It was Julian. My stomach lurched, and a feeling of disgust rose in my throat. I looked at Leo, pleading for help. He signaled for me to calm down and whispered in my ear, "Answer it. Play the part. You're the worried wife." Not a hint of suspicion. If you can cry, even better. Keep him on the line and put it on speaker. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and pressed the answer button, deliberately making my voice tremble. "Hello? Julian? My love. Were you sleeping? I'm so sorry. I got too busy yesterday to call you back." His voice over the line was still sweet, perfectly artificial. "I'm fine," I started to sniffle. "I was just worried about you. Isn't the conference exhausting? Take care of yourself." Leo gave me a thumbs up, signaling I was doing great. "I'm fine, darling. The work is almost done. I should be back with you in a day or two." He lied without batting an eye. "You're at your parents', right?" "Yes, I'm here. I was too scared to be in the house alone." I continued the act, adding the touch of helpless affection he was used to. "Julian, I checked our joint account yesterday. I think there might be a problem. A lot of money is gone. I'm worried." I cast my first probe. A few seconds of silence followed. I could picture his panicked face. "Oh, that was me. I put it into a major investment. I was going to surprise you when I got back." "Don't worry. It'll come back double, triple. My wife doesn't need to worry her pretty little head." "Oh, thank goodness. I thought something was wrong." "Well, work hard then. I won't disturb you. Love you." As soon as I hung up, I felt drained, as if I'd just fought a battle. To act with the man who betrayed me, to say I love you to someone I hated, to my very core, it was worse than torture. "That was perfect." Leo patted my shoulder. "He started lying to cover the financial issues. That's proof he has something to hide. He thinks you still trust him blindly. That's our advantage. He's letting his guard down." My father nodded. "Right now, the most important thing is to get back into that villa. His personal computer, documents in his safe. The most crucial evidence will be there." "But how can I go back there? I don't want to be there alone." I shuddered at the thought of returning to that house filled with lies. "You're not going alone," Leo said firmly. "I'm coming with you. We're going as lawyer and client to collect personal property and documents related to a divorce proceeding. It's perfectly legal. Plus, I've hired an expert. He'll copy every byte of data from Julian's computer, including deleted files. We won't miss a thing." The plan was set. That afternoon, Leo and I would return to the scene of the crime. I would have to face the memories and the pain again. But this time, I wasn't alone. I would turn the very place where I was betrayed into the starting point of their downfall. My perfect performance had just begun, and the role of the naive, pitiful wife would continue until the very end, until the curtain fell and the guilty paid their price. That afternoon, I returned to the villa with Leo and an IT expert. The air inside was just as cold and suffocating as the night before. While the expert worked on copying the data from Julian's computer, Leo and I carefully searched the study. We found a small safe hidden behind a painting on the wall. "Do you know the combination?" Leo asked. I shook my head, but then a sequence of numbers flashed in my mind. The mistress's birthday. I remembered seeing it on some document on the computer. With a trembling hand, I keyed it in. With a soft click, the safe opened. Inside wasn't much cash, but it was filled with loan agreements and documents I had never seen before. To my horror, My name was crudely forged in the signature lines for the borrower and guarantor. My heart stopped. Julian hadn't just deceived me. He had tried to saddle me with millions in debt and make me a criminal. Leo carefully photographed every document. That's it. This is irrefutable proof, he said, unable to hide his anger on my behalf. Forging a signature to obtain a loan is a serious criminal offense. The Harringtons won't get out of this one. We took everything and left immediately. We had barely arrived back at my parents' house when the doorbell rang insistently. My mother looked at the security camera, and her face hardened. "It's your mother-in-law." My father and I exchanged a look, then glanced at Leo. He gave a sly smile, took my phone, turned on the recording app, and slipped it into my coat pocket. Right on cue. The show is about to begin. Stay calm and let her do all the talking. The more she talks, the more mistakes she'll make. When my mother opened the door, Patricia Harrington stormed in like a hurricane. Gone was her usual elegant and composed demeanor. Today she looked haggard and furious. She saw me and, without so much as a greeting to my parents, pointed a finger in my face. "What are you doing here? Who gave you permission to come here?" "Patricia, this is my parents' house. Where else would I go?" I tried to keep my voice calm. "You still dare to call me by my first name?" "I have no daughter-in-law like you," she shrieked. I heard everything from Julian, lazing around at home, consumed by baseless jealousy. "You are not worthy of my son." My father shot to his feet, his face red. "Madam, you will watch your tone. This is my house, and my daughter is not someone you can insult at will." "Oh, listen to him, defending his precious daughter," Patricia sneered. "Let me make it clear for you. Our Julian has found someone much better. Chloe is beautiful, kind, and she is carrying our family's precious heir. It would be best for your daughter to step aside quietly." She threw a file of papers onto the table. "This is a divorce settlement I had prepared. Sign it. I'll give you a one-bedroom flat in Canary Wharf as alimony. Think of it as compensation for your wasted youth. Take it and disappear from my sight. Don't make me do things the ugly way. That little senior editor job you have at the publishing house? I can make it disappear with a single phone call." I looked at the cheap divorce agreement and the brazen face of the woman I once genuinely respected. Fury rose in my throat, but I remembered Leo's words. I took a deep breath, looked her straight in the eye, and said in a clear, cold voice, "Are you finished? If you are, please leave. I will not be signing this document, and I will not be taking your compensation. As for the divorce, I will see you in court." What? She was stunned. She had never imagined her meek, obedient daughter-in-law would dare speak to her with such defiance. Just as she was about to start screaming insults again, Leo emerged from the other room. In his hand was his phone, the screen showing it was recording. "Mrs. Harrington, good afternoon. My name is Leo Davies, and I am Mrs. Eleanor Harrington's legal counsel. Every word you have spoken since entering this house, including your threats and attempts at coercion, has been recorded. I imagine it will make for very interesting evidence in court. Thank you for coming all this way to give us such a gift." Patricia's face went from red to white. She stammered, pointing a trembling finger at us, before stumbling out, not forgetting to spit a curse as she left. The door slammed shut. I collapsed into a chair, my whole body shaking. Leo stopped the recording and smiled at me. The evidence just walked right through the door. Next step, paying a visit to Miss Chloe Vance. That evening, Mark sent a thick file to Leo. The information on Chloe Vance was laid bare. She was 24, from a small town in the north, had dropped out of school early and moved to London. Her employment history was vague, but her dating history was spectacular. She exclusively dated wealthy, married, middle-aged men. Julian was not her first victim, and likely wouldn't be her last. A professional, just as I thought, Leo murmured. More importantly, Mark had found the address of the luxury apartment Julian had bought for her. It was a high-end penthouse in Canary Wharf, registered in Chloe's name, but the payment had been funneled from the Harrington Company's accounts under the guise of project expenses. Another charge to add to the list: corporate embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty, Leo said, tapping the file with his finger. Eleanor, do you want to go there? I think it would be best if you went yourself. We need more proof that they are cohabiting as a couple. Honestly, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face the person who had destroyed my family. But my rational mind told me I had to. I had to see it for myself to completely shatter any lingering illusions and turn my pain into absolute strength. I'll go, I said firmly. The next day, I drove to the address alone. Leo waited at a nearby cafe, ready to provide support if needed. Standing before the door of the 25th floor penthouse, I took a deep breath to compose myself. But what I saw on the door shattered all my composure. It was a small, laser-engraved wooden plaque that read, "The Harringtons." They weren't even trying to hide it. They were publicly living as a couple, building their new nest on the ruins of my home. A surge of rage boiled my blood. I pressed the doorbell, hard and firm. A few seconds later, the door opened. Chloe stood there in a thin silk maternity robe, one hand on her hip. She looked me up and down, her expression shifting to one of contempt. She was even prettier than in the photos, a sharp, calculating kind of beauty. Yes? Who are you looking for? Her voice was cold and sharp. I am Eleanor Harrington. Julian Harrington's wife, I said, enunciating each word. Chloe let out a sneer. Ah, so you're the wife. I've heard so much about you. What are you doing here? Julian isn't here. He's busy planning a family holiday for me and our baby. I'm not here for him. I'm here for you. For me? Chloe raised an eyebrow. What for? To pull my hair? Oh, honestly, what century are you living in? You should blame yourself for not being able to keep your man. Did you really think an old, barren woman like you could ever compare to me? Her every word was a needle piercing my flesh. But I didn't get angry. I looked straight at her belly, then into her eyes, and smiled coldly. I'm not here to pull your hair. I'm here to give you some news. First, Julian and I are still legally married. You and him living together so openly could be subject to legal action. This little "The Harringtons" plaque will make for excellent evidence. Chloe's arrogant expression faltered slightly. Second, I continued, this apartment was bought with embezzled company funds. The authorities will be paying a visit here very soon. As the registered owner, it will be very difficult for you to avoid being implicated. You, what nonsense are you talking? Chloe started to stammer, her initial confidence gone. And third, my final point. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only we could hear. You seem to think that baby in your belly is your ticket to security. Don't be so naive as to think it will make you Mrs. Harrington. While it means nothing to me, I wonder what will happen when the Harringtons find out the truth about that baby. Will it still be their precious heir then? Enjoy your time while it lasts, Miss Vance. With that, I turned and walked away without a backward glance. I could hear her shouting something behind me, but I didn't care. I had planted a seed of doubt in her mind. I had shattered her confidence and arrogance. In this confrontation, I had won. And this was only the beginning. After confronting Chloe, I felt strangely lighter. The hatred was still there, but it no longer burned me blindly. It was now a controlled flame, fuel for the next phase of my plan. The very next morning, Leo and I went to the bank. On his advice, I immediately requested a freeze on all our joint accounts and the family credit cards Julian had access to. The bank manager was initially hesitant, but when Leo presented our marriage certificate and evidence suggesting Julian's attempts to hide assets, he quickly complied. The little savings I had were moved to a new account, solely in my name. "This is the first step in cutting off his funds," Leo explained. "Without money, he can't maintain his lavish lifestyle with his mistress. He'll start to panic." The next move was even bolder. Through a trusted independent accounting firm my father recommended, Leo sent a formal letter to the Harrington Company. It demanded access to and a full audit of all financial records for the past 3 years. As the legal wife of a director and an interested party whose joint assets were tied up in the business, I had every right to do so. The letter also stated that if the company failed to cooperate, we would pursue legal action and request court intervention. This was a direct assault on the entire Harrington family's livelihood. As Leo predicted, the results were swift. That afternoon, while I was tying up loose ends at my publishing house, my phone rang incessantly. It was Julian. I let it ring for a while, before answering, pretending to be sleepy. "Hello? Eleanor, were you sleeping?" Yes. A bit tired, just resting my eyes." "What's up, darling?" I feigned a yawn. "Eleanor, something terrible has happened." Julian's voice was stripped of its artificial sweetness, replaced by genuine panic. "My cards, all of them have been declined. I can't withdraw money or pay for anything. Can you check if your account is okay?" "Oh, that's strange." I feigned surprise. "Let me check." "Oh my, our joint account is frozen too. Julian, maybe the bank made a mistake? Or maybe it's something to do with that big investment you made. They might have put a temporary hold on it for verification." I cleverly shifted the blame onto him. Silence on the other end. I could almost feel him breaking into a cold sweat. The big investment he had fabricated was now coming back to bite him. "It must be that," Julian said anxiously. "I'll call the bank." "But, Eleanor, some accounting firm came to our company today demanding to see the books. Did you have anything to do with that? An audit?" "I have no idea," I replied innocently. "Our company is reputable. It's probably just a routine check. Don't worry so much. Enjoy your holiday. I'll take care of everything at home." I hung up and allowed myself a cold smile. "I'll take care of everything. Yes, I would take very meticulous care of him and his family. I would sever their lifelines one by one, until they drowned in the swamp of lies and greed they had created." The first counterattack was a perfect success. Now, it was time to watch the fish on the hook start to thrash. Over the next few days, Julian called repeatedly. Sometimes he would try to sweet-talk me. Other times he would yell and demand answers. But each time I played the part of the clueless, innocent wife to perfection. Meanwhile, back in London, our machine of vengeance operated smoothly and ruthlessly. One evening, Leo called me, his voice urgent. "Eleanor, I've just got a new piece of intel. Julian Harrington is trying to register his parents and his brother's family as residents at your villa." My heart sank. "Why? Why do you think?" "To legitimize their claim on the house." Leo's voice was sharp. "The villa is marital property, but the deed is in your name alone. If his whole family is officially registered as living there, they'll use it in court later. They'll claim it was the sole family residence, that they contributed to its upkeep. They can spin any number of stories. We have to stop this now. What do we do? I asked, worried. Don't worry. I anticipated something like this, and now is the time to play our ace. Leo's voice was confident. Remember those forged loan documents we found in the safe? They're not just evidence of fraud. They're proof of the entire family's unscrupulous character. We're not just going to block their registration. We are going to get an order to freeze every single one of their assets. Freeze their assets? I was stunned. It was an incredibly aggressive move. It would render an entire family financially powerless. Buying, selling, traveling, every aspect of their civil life would grind to a halt. Is that even possible? My voice trembled. For others, it would be difficult. For us, it's possible, Leo laughed. Your cousin, Detective Sergeant Mark, is the key. The next morning, I went to the police station with Leo and Mark. Mark used his position and contacts to get us a direct meeting with a senior officer in the fraud squad. In the solemn atmosphere of the office, I gave a full statement, detailing everything from Julian's affair and financial fraud to the plot to seize the villa. Leo, as my counsel, added sharp legal arguments. But the decisive blow was the file Mark placed on the desk. Sir, this is evidence that Julian Harrington has, on multiple occasions, forged his wife Eleanor's signature to secure millions in fraudulent loans and transactions. This demonstrates a pattern of criminal intent and financial misconduct. Currently, the Harrington family is attempting to register at Mrs. Harrington's property to unlawfully seize it. We have reason to believe this family's financial dealings are deeply corrupt. To prevent further illegal acts and to aid our investigation, we formally request a court order under the Proceeds of Crime Act to freeze all known assets belonging to the entire Harrington family, pending a full investigation. The senior officer's face grew progressively sterner as he reviewed the file. He looked at me with a sympathetic expression, then nodded at Mark. Understood. I'll handle this personally. Rest assured, this will be dealt with strictly, according to the law. As I left the police station, the London sun felt bright, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I had just delivered a fatal blow to the entire family. I had stripped them of their most fundamental power, their money. They would soon discover that without their wealth, they were nothing. Their holiday was about to end in a nightmare they could never have imagined. While the Harringtons were stranded in the Maldives, wrestling with useless credit cards and a frozen financial future, I decided to deliver the final blow. This attack wasn't merely legal or financial. It was psychological, designed to cut off their retreat completely. I want to sell the villa, I told Leo in his office. Leo nearly dropped his coffee cup. What? You want to sell it now? Yes. Immediately, I said, my voice unwavering. It's my property. Their assets are frozen. They have no way to stop me. I want them to return not to a familiar home, but to a locked gate with new owners. Leo stared at me with a mixture of shock and admiration. You are truly ruthless, Eleanor. I love it. It's the ultimate power move. Not only do you secure liquid assets to start your new life, but you utterly destroy the symbol of their success, what they considered their sanctuary. It will break their will. But selling a £3 million house isn't something that happens overnight, my father, who was with us, said worriedly. I'm not selling it for $3 million, I replied. I'm selling it for 2.8. on the condition that the sale is completed within 1 week. There are wealthy people who need a place urgently and won't quibble over the price. I want it done so fast they won't even have time to react. The plan was set in motion immediately. Through Leo's and my father's networks, word spread through the high-end property market that a legally clean prime Hampstead villa was available for a quick sale at an incredible price. Just as I predicted, within 2 days, a businessman in the import-export trade contacted us. He urgently needed a prestigious residence for entertaining overseas partners and was sold on the villa's location an unbeatable price. A week later, I sat in a solicitor's office, signing the contract of sale. As my pen moved across the paper, a wave of complex emotions washed over me. That house was a place where I had built beautiful memories and dreamed of a happy family. But it was also where betrayal had been sown and nurtured. Now, I was erasing it with my own hand. There were no regrets. Only the lightness of someone who had shed a heavy burden. £2.8 million. The vast sum was transferred into secure accounts Leo had set up for me. I had completely burned their bridges. Now the Harrington family had not only lost their money and reputation, but also the very home they were meant to return to. They were, for all intents and purposes, homeless. What would they feel when they dragged their tired bodies back from the airport, only to be met by a new gate and a new owner? The feeling of having everything snatched away from them. The very feeling they had given me. My plan for revenge was proceeding more perfectly than I could have ever hoped. My revenge was proceeding perfectly, even better than I had planned. Each step I took pushed the Harrington family deeper into a swamp of despair. It should have felt triumphant, satisfying, but strangely, I had been feeling physically off for the past few weeks. Every morning, I was hit by a sudden wave of nausea. I had no appetite, and a constant fatigue made me want to do nothing but lie in bed. At first, I chalked it up to extreme stress. This war was exhausting me, physically and mentally. My mother, seeing me grow pale and lose weight, was beside herself with worry. "Eleanor, darling, why don't you get a full checkup? I'm so worried about you. I'll come with you." To reassure her, I booked an appointment at a private clinic. After giving blood and undergoing several tests, I waited anxiously in the consulting room. Half an hour later, the doctor, a kind-faced woman about my mother's age, smiled warmly at me. She looked over my results on her computer. "Well, congratulations. There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, there's some very good news." My ears were ringing. "Good? Good news? What do you mean?" "You're pregnant," the doctor said, still smiling. "You're about 5 weeks along. The gestational sac is well positioned in the uterus and everything looks healthy. Your constitution just makes you prone to severe morning sickness. I'll prescribe some vitamins and give you some advice on managing your diet." Pregnant. The word struck me like a bolt of lightning. I was so stunned I couldn't speak. My mother, sitting beside me, went from shock to joy, and then her expression clouded with concern for me. I couldn't hear what the doctor was saying anymore. The only word echoing in my mind was pregnant. A tiny life was growing inside me. A life that was the product of this fraudulent marriage. It was my child, but it was also Julian Harrington's child. My entire plan for revenge, my hatred, my ironclad resolve, it all seemed to crumble in an instant. What was I supposed to do with this child? Should I keep it? Should I carry the bloodline of the man who betrayed and trampled on me? Forced to look at the child every day and be reminded of my unforgettable pain? but the thought of getting rid of it, a shudder went through me. It was my child, my flesh and blood. I couldn't be that cruel. I left the clinic in a daze, my hand unconsciously clutching the ultrasound photo, showing a tiny black dot. A tiny dot that carried the weight of the world, threatening to upend everything. My war had just become infinitely more complicated. I was no longer fighting just for myself. I now had to decide the fate of an innocent life. The path ahead suddenly seemed dimmer and more obscure than ever before. The days after discovering my pregnancy were the worst. I shut myself in my room, refusing to see anyone, including my parents. An internal conflict was tearing me apart. On one hand, a maternal instinct surged, making me want to protect the small life within me. On the other, my rational mind screamed that this child was a mistake, a cursed link to the Harrington family. My revenge was nearing its climax, but the arrival of this child made me hesitate. What should I do? As I was drowning in despair, a call came from an unknown number. I didn't want to answer and ignored it, but the caller was persistent. Finally, irritated, I picked up, ready to give them a piece of my mind. Hello? Who is this? Is this Eleanor Harrington? Julian Harrington's wife? A low, slightly raspy voice of an older woman came through the receiver. It is. Who's speaking? I asked, on guard. My name is Beatrice. Beatrice Harrington. I'm Julian's paternal aunt. I froze. Julian's aunt? I had never heard of her from anyone in the Harrington family. As far as I knew, my father-in-law was an only child. As if reading my mind, the woman continued, I'm sure you're surprised. My brother, your father-in-law, Richard, cut ties with me over 20 years ago. He prefers nobody knows I exist. Then why are you calling me? I was still suspicious. I've been watching what you've been doing these past few weeks, Eleanor, Beatrice said. I know about Julian's affair, about the whole family deceiving you. You've done well, freezing the accounts, the asset seizure, selling the house, very decisive. You remind me of my younger self. There was a note of bitterness in her voice. I'm calling because I want to help you. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they say. And you and I, we share a common enemy. My brother's family. Why should I trust you? I'm not asking you to trust me just yet. Let's meet, she said. I have something interesting to show you. Something that will ensure the entire Harrington family will never be able to hold their heads up again. I'll be waiting at a cafe called Serenity in Mayfair tonight at 8. She hung up before I could reply. I sat there, stunned. My mind was in turmoil. A long-lost aunt, estranged for 2 decades, suddenly appears and offers to help with my revenge. It was bizarre, but in my current situation, I had nothing left to lose. I decided to meet her. At exactly 8 p.m., I arrived at Serenity Cafe, a small, discreet place tucked away in a quiet mews. Beatrice Harrington was already waiting at a corner table. She looked to be in her early 60s, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were sharp, carrying an air of strength and world-weariness. She looked nothing like my father-in-law. As I sat down, she got straight to the point. She placed a worn leather briefcase on the table. In here, she said, are the original founding documents for Harrington and Sons, the company I co-founded with my brother. But when it became successful, he used underhanded tactics to force me out and steal my shares. In here is the proof of his tax evasion, the shell companies he used to create slush funds, and the embezzlement he used to build his fortune. I was stunned as I looked through the documents. the numbers, the signatures, the phantom contracts. It was all undeniable. This alone could put my father-in-law in prison for the rest of his life. But that's not the most interesting part, Beatrice said, her expression complex. She handed me a yellowed, aged lab report. This is the killing blow. I took the paper. It was a DNA test result. Subjects: Richard Harrington and Julian Harrington. Result: paternity exclusion. My mind felt like it was going to explode. Julian wasn't Richard's biological son? That's right, Beatrice said, as if she could hear my thoughts. Julian is the result of a mistake. My sister-in-law, your mother-in-law, made with an old flame. My brother found out, but he needed an heir to carry on the family name and legacy, so he agreed to raise him as his own. But in his heart, he never truly loved the boy. That's why he was always so strict, so repressive towards him. This is the Harrington family's greatest secret, the shame he has tried to bury his entire life. Now, I'm giving it to you. What you do with it is up to you. I looked from the woman before me to the evidence in my hands. The turmoil over the baby in my womb vanished in an instant, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Beatrice had just handed me the sharpest sword imaginable, and with it, I would end everything. The Harringtons' holiday ended in disaster. They didn't return in business class as they had left, but on a late-night budget flight, having scraped together cash from various sources. All their accounts were frozen, their credit cards useless pieces of plastic. They returned exhausted, furious, and utterly bewildered. The first shock came when their taxi pulled up to the Hampstead villa. The familiar iron gate had been replaced with a more modern one, and worse, a strange family was moving in furniture. "What is the meaning of this?" Richard Harrington roared. "Who dares to enter my house?" The new owner, the businessman, looked at them, confused. "Your house?" "Sir, you must be mistaken. I am the legal owner of this property, with the deed fully transferred." "You bought it? From whom?" Patricia shrieked, her face pale. "From the previous owner, a Mrs. Eleanor Harrington," the man replied. The name Eleanor Harrington struck the family like a lightning bolt. Julian stood frozen, as if he'd lost his mind. That woman, she dared to sell the house? She dared to cut off our very path home? Humiliated, the Harringtons were forced to check into a cheap motel. The second shock came when Richard failed to withdraw money from his offshore slush fund accounts. A visit to the bank confirmed that, due to a police investigation, all family members' assets were frozen, making any transaction impossible. Having lost their home, their money, and even their financial standing, their despair and rage reached a breaking point. In their madness, there was only one person they could think of. Me. I had to be behind all of this. "That bitch! I'm going to find her. I'll tear her limb from limb." Patricia screamed in the motel room. Julian, who had been in a state of panic for days, was now consumed by fury. He couldn't believe that his meek, obedient wife could have orchestrated such a devastating attack on her own. Someone had to be behind it, but whoever it was, he had to confront me. "Fine, we'll go to her office," Julian snarled. "I'm going to ask her exactly why she did this to our family, and I'm going to make her undo it all." They had no idea that this was exactly what I had been waiting for. The next morning, I went to my publishing house as usual. But today, I was prepared. Leo had stationed 2 plainclothes security guards nearby. My cousin Mark had also alerted the local police station to be ready to intervene at his signal. In the main company conference room, a projector was set up, connected to my laptop. A laptop that contained all the evidence. I had set the perfect trap, and the foolish moths were flying straight into the flame. Sitting in my office, I sipped a cup of chamomile tea to calm my nerves. My heart was perfectly still. The curtain was about to rise on the final act. I was the director, and the Harrington family were the lead actors in the tragedy of their own lives. Just before I left for work, I got a call from Mark. His voice was electric with excitement. "Ellie, the results are in. A special gift for the grand finale." "What results, Mark?" I asked, feeling my heart beat faster. A few days prior, after planting doubt in Chloe's mind, I had asked Mark to procure hair samples from Julian and his brother, Simon, and a nail clipping Chloe had carelessly left in a taxi after her tantrum at my parents' house. It was a dirty tactic, but in this war, I was pulling no punches. The DNA test results. Mark's voice was heavy with meaning. "Just got the report from the lab. You'd better sit down for this. The baby in her womb. It's not Julian's." I froze for a few seconds. Not Julian's? Then whose is it? His brother's. Simon Harrington's. Another shock. But this one wasn't painful. Instead, a chilling sense of triumph washed over me. This drama had a more twisted plot than I could have imagined. The precious heir that Julian adored and the entire Harrington clan awaited was the product of incestuous adultery and a double betrayal. The brother was sleeping with the brother's mistress. This family was rotten to its core. "Thank you, Mark. This is the most valuable gift of all," I said coldly. "Send me the report immediately." I received the file moments later. The letters and numbers on it were a death sentence for the pride of Julian and his family. This was it. The ultimate weapon of destruction. I now held everything in my hands, from financial proof and audio recordings to their most sordid secrets. I calmly saved the report in a separate folder named Finale. All preparations were complete. I looked at myself in the mirror, adjusting my appearance. Today, I wore a tailored pantsuit in a deep burgundy, the color of power and the color of blood. My makeup was meticulous, hiding any trace of fatigue, leaving only a sharp, cold facade. I was no longer the victim. Today, I was the judge. When I arrived at the office, I asked the senior management and department heads to gather in the main conference room for an urgent meeting concerning a personal matter that could impact the company's reputation. Curiosity drew everyone in. I wanted everyone to witness the downfall of the Harringtons. I wanted them to be publicly shamed and humiliated. The trap was set, the bait was laid, and the wounded beast was charging blindly forward. Around 10 a.m., the Harringtons stormed in. They bypassed reception and came straight to my floor, creating a scene. At the lead was Julian, his face flushed with anger and lack of sleep, followed by his parents and his brother's family. "Eleanor, get out here!" Julian bellowed, oblivious to the shocked stares of my colleagues. I calmly walked out of my office and looked him straight in the eye. "What is all this commotion about, Julian? You dare play innocent?" Patricia lunged forward to slap me, but was intercepted by one of the security guards. "What have you done to our family? Why was our house sold? Why are our accounts frozen? Why have our lives been destroyed?" I smiled, gently. "Perhaps we should discuss those questions in the conference room. It's a bit crowded out here, and as it happens, I have a few things I'd like to show you all." With that, I turned and walked into the large conference room, where the executives and my colleagues were already seated. The Harringtons, though suspicious, followed in a horde, determined to have their confrontation. Once everyone was seated, I took the projector remote and stood at the podium. The conference room doors were closed. "Welcome, everyone," I began, my voice resonating in the room. "The reason I've gathered you all here today is to present a short play starring the Harrington family. The title of this play is Betrayal." The projector screen lit up. The first images were the affectionate photos of Julian and Chloe in the Maldives. A murmur went through the room. Julian's face turned ashen. Act 1. "Adultery," I said in a measured tone. While in a legal marriage with me, Julian Harrington openly carried on an affair with Miss Chloe Vance and conceived a child. The entire Harrington family was aware of this, condoned it, and even celebrated it. I clicked the remote. The screen changed to bank statements and the loan agreements with my forged signature. Act 2. Fraud. Julian Harrington embezzled corporate funds, misappropriated joint assets, and forged my name to secure millions in loans. It's highly unlikely that the company chairman, Richard Harrington, was unaware of this. Richard jumped to his feet. You slander me? Slander?" I gave a cold laugh. "Then perhaps you'd like to listen to this audio file." Patricia's voice, clear as day, echoed from the speakers. "Sign it. I'll give you a 1-bedroom flat. Don't make me do things the ugly way. That little senior editor job you have? I can make it disappear with a single phone call." The entire room held its breath. Patricia stumbled back into her chair. All color drained from her face. "And now, for the climax," I said, fixing my gaze on Julian. "You were so proud of your unborn child, weren't you? The precious Harrington heir." I clicked the button again. The DNA report appeared on the screen. I read it out loud, slowly and clearly. DNA analysis between Mr. Simon Harrington and the fetus of Miss Chloe Vance. Conclusion: paternity is practically proven. The entire Harrington family froze. Julian stared at his brother, his eyes turning from disbelief to sheer madness. His brother's wife fainted on the spot. "But we're not finished," I said, my voice like ice. "There is one final secret. A secret that Mr. Richard Harrington has kept buried for decades." I brought up the old DNA test result from Beatrice. Julian Harrington, the son that the chairman always repressed and treated with such severity, is not, in fact, his biological son. That was the final straw. Julian completely broke. He screamed like a wounded animal and lunged at me, trying to throttle me. "I'll kill you!" But before his hands could reach me, the conference room doors burst open. The police swarmed in. Nobody move. Mark was at the forefront, coldly handcuffing Julian. "Julian Harrington, you are under arrest for attempted assault. Richard Harrington, Patricia Harrington, Simon Harrington, you will need to accompany us to the station for questioning regarding fraud, embezzlement, defamation, and conspiracy to commit adultery." The entire Harrington clan was dragged away under the horrified gaze of the entire company. The play had ended. I watched them go, my hand unconsciously resting on my stomach. The storm had passed, and I was the last one standing. The incident at the publishing house exploded like a bomb. A video of the confrontation, secretly filmed by one of my colleagues, was somehow leaked to social media. Overnight, my story became the talk of the town. Major online news outlets ran headlines: "Publishing executive exposes in, Law's affair, fraud, and shocking family secrets." The media storm was fierce, but this time, instead of swallowing me, it lifted me up. Public opinion was almost unanimously on my side. People called me a rose of steel, praising my intelligence, strength, and decisiveness. They were furious at the Harringtons' actions, condemning Julian's cruelty, Patricia's audacity, and the corruption of an entire family. Online forums for women lit up, holding my story up as an example of how to protect oneself in a marriage. In the eye of the storm, I chose silence. I took an extended leave from work and retreated to my parents' home, avoiding all media attention. The only thing that mattered to me now was the tiny life inside me. That evening, I sat in the living room with my parents. My father, having read an article about me, looked at me for a long time. "Eleanor," he asked in his low, warm voice, "what are your plans for the baby?" I stroked my stomach without a word. My mother took my hand, her eyes full of love. "Whatever you decide, your father and I will always be on your side. If you want to have this baby, we will help you raise it. That child is our grandchild. It's our blood. It has done nothing wrong." Her words brought tears to my eyes. She was right. The child was innocent. The guilt belonged to the adults. I had my revenge. I had made those who hurt me pay the price. I couldn't now, out of my own hatred, deny an innocent life its right to exist. "I'm keeping the baby," I said, my voice firm. "I'm going to raise this child to be wonderful. This child is my child. Mine alone." My parents nodded, their faces filled with relief and pride. A wise decision. Our daughter has truly grown up. Meanwhile, another character in this story was making her own decision. When Chloe saw the viral video and realized all the secrets were out and the Harrington family was ruined, she didn't hesitate for a second. With the cunning of a professional grifter, she packed up what little cash Julian had given her and vanished without a trace. When the police went to the luxury penthouse in Canary Wharf, they were met with an empty apartment and the Harringtons' plaque discarded on the floor. She had fled, carrying ill-gotten money and a baby of uncertain destiny, leaving nothing but a mess for the men she had once sworn her devotion to. A few weeks later, when things had quieted down, I received a letter from a detention center. It was from Julian. He wanted to see me. Leo advised against it, but I felt differently. I needed to face him one last time to put a true end to the past. I visited the facility on a gray afternoon. I sat waiting in the visitation room, a thick glass partition between us. A few minutes later, Julian was brought in. I almost didn't recognize him. The once handsome and arrogant man was now gaunt in an oversized prison uniform, his hair cropped short, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep and despair. When he saw me, he rushed to the glass, a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Eleanor, you came. I knew you would." His voice was hoarse. I sat there, my expression unreadable. "Eleanor, I'm sorry," Julian broke down in belated tears. "I know nothing I say can change anything, but I am truly sorry. I was wrong. I was scum, the worst kind of person. I betrayed you. I hurt you. Hit me, curse me. I don't care. Please, please just forgive me." "Forgiveness?" I offered a cold smile. "What do you think my forgiveness would change? Would it heal the scars on my heart? Would it help your family escape the judgment of the law?" "No, I know it won't." Julian shook his head desperately. "I don't deserve it. I asked to see you because there's something I need to tell you." He looked at my stomach with a complicated expression. "The baby. You're still keeping it, right?" I simply stared at him. "Eleanor, please," he begged, pressing his hands against the glass. "Please protect our child. The baby is innocent. It's my blood. Please just give me a chance to be a father, even from inside here. When I get out, I'll spend the rest of my life working like an animal to repay you both. My child, I corrected him coldly. This child is my child. It has nothing to do with you or the Harringtons. Julian froze, then nodded bitterly. Your child. Right. As long as you protect them, that's enough for me. He hesitated, then lowered his voice as if sharing a secret. There's one more thing I have to tell you. My aunt. Be careful of her, Beatrice. I frowned. She's not who you think she is, Julian said, a look of fear in his eyes. She hates our family. She hates our father. She didn't help you out of kindness. She did it for her own reasons. Her cruelty is beyond anything you can imagine. Be careful, Eleanor. Don't become her next pawn. Just then, the visiting time was up. As the guards led him away, Julian kept looking back at me, mouthing the words, "Be careful." I was left alone with my thoughts. It was a warning from an untrustworthy source, but it planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Beatrice Harrington. Who was she, really? But I soon shook my head, pushing the thoughts away. Whoever she was, whatever her motives, my war was over. From now on, I would live only for myself and my child, leaving the past behind this thick glass wall. 1 year later, I sat on the balcony of a small, beautiful cottage overlooking the sea in St. Ives, Cornwall. The sea breeze gently tousled my hair, carrying the scent of salt and a sense of profound peace. London, with its noise and painful memories, was now in the past. I had chosen this idyllic coastal town to start my new life. A soft coo from the room pulled me from my thoughts. I smiled and went inside. In a white cot, a little angel was stirring. She had my large, dark, round eyes and a delicate nose. I named her Grace, hoping her life would always be filled with ease and freedom. The birth of Grace had healed all the wounds in my heart. Watching her sleep peacefully, seeing her carefree smile, I knew that my decision to keep her was the best I had ever made. After the storm passed, I had rebuilt my life with the money from the villa sale. I saved some, invested some in property in Cornwall, and used the rest to write. I poured my entire heart, the pain, the anger, the strength, and the journey of reclaiming myself into a book. I titled it Phoenix. To my surprise, it resonated deeply, touching the hearts of millions of women who had been, or were being, hurt in their marriages. Phoenix became a national bestseller, going through reprint after reprint. I went from a publishing house editor to a celebrated author and an inspiration overnight. With the income from royalties, I fulfilled another dream. I established a charitable foundation called The Lighthouse, dedicated to providing legal aid, psychological counseling, and financial support to vulnerable women victims of domestic abuse and inequality. The foundation grew daily, becoming a steadfast pillar for many unfortunate lives. As for the Harringtons, they paid a heavy price. Richard was sentenced to 15 years for tax evasion, embezzlement, and numerous other charges. Harrington and Sons went bankrupt, its assets seized to pay off debts. Julian received a 5-year sentence for fraud, adultery, and attempted assault. His brother, Simon, received a suspended sentence. Patricia, after the immense shock, suffered a mental breakdown from which she never fully recovered. A once glorious family was utterly destroyed. I no longer cared about them. My life was now Grace, my writing, and the Lighthouse Foundation. In these simple things, I found peace and meaning. The Lighthouse Foundation was hosting a fundraising gala at a seaside resort in Cornwall. As the founder, I was busy greeting patrons and guests. Grace, who had just turned 1, was on my hip, the star of the event, cooed over by everyone. While chatting with a group of people, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Eleanor? Is that you?" I turned to see a tall, kind-faced man with intelligent eyes and glasses smiling at me. I stared for a moment before recognition dawned. Ethan Hayes? Is that really you?" "It's me," he laughed. "I can't believe I'd run into you here. I read your book. It was brilliant. And I heard your story. You were so strong, so incredible." Ethan was a friend from university. He had always been kind and a bit shy, the one who quietly helped me with my studies. We lost touch after graduation, and I never thought I'd see him again after all these years. He was now an architect in Cornwall for a new resort project and had attended the gala after hearing about the foundation. We talked for a long time about our lives, our changes. Ethan was a wonderful conversationalist. The way he looked at me and Grace was always warm and sincere. He never pried into my painful past, but simply listened and empathized. That evening, as I was putting Grace to bed, a text came from an unknown number. "It's me, Julian. I might be getting out on parole soon. Could you maybe send me just one picture of the baby? I miss her so much." I read the text without a flicker of emotion and quietly deleted it. To me, that man was already dead. A few days later, Ethan came to visit my cottage. He didn't bring flowers or expensive gifts. Instead, he brought a small, beautiful wooden doll's house he had made himself for Grace. She loved her new toy, hugging it tightly. Ethan sat on the floor, patiently playing with her. The scene was so warm, so peaceful. He looked up at me and smiled gently. "Eleanor, I know this might be too soon, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to visit you and Grace more often." I looked at him, then at Grace, who was giggling happily. I felt a warmth seep into my heart, which had been frozen for so long. I smiled and nodded. A new morning was dawning in the beautiful seaside town. There were no more storms, only golden sunlight, the blue sea, and the hope of a new, whole, and worthy happiness.